Have you ever wondered why some restaurants can charge $5 per burger, but other restaurants can charge $12 for the exact same burger? The answer is in branding, which is why in this video, I'm going to cover the 3 steps to doing branding for your restaurant so that you can have a very profitable business based on my experience advising thousands of restaurants on marketing over the past 6 years. If you're planning on starting a restaurant or are already in the restaurant business and looking to take your brand to the next level, then make sure you keep watching because these tips can make or break a restaurant's success. Building a great brand is the single most important thing that a restaurant can do. So let's dive into it. Starting with step 1, defining who your ideal customer is. I used to think that the best way to make money as a restaurant was to have a brand that appealed to everyone, so that when you marketed your food, as many people as possible would feel like your restaurant was a fit for them. But I was wrong about that. The best restaurants, the most profitable ones, appeal to specific groups of people and intentionally get specific with their target customer. For example, everybody loves pizza, and when most people think of pizza, the first brand they think of is Domino's because it's the leader globally in pizza. Yet Domino's doesn't appeal to everybody at all. If I called my 60-year-old mom right now and asked her, "Mom, what do you think of Domino's?" I could already hear her on the other end being like, "Yuck, it's disgusting. It tastes like cardboard." And almost everybody in her age group has that exact same opinion. But if I walked down the street to the college right by me and asked the 20-year-old guys what they think of Domino's, they would say, "Domino's is the best, bro. It's epic." And that's because the ideal Domino's customer is a young man between the ages of 20 and 30. And financially, their customers tend to be lower earning in the lower middle class as a result of being in that age group. That doesn't mean that occasionally older women like my mom don't ever order Domino's. Exceptions do exist. My mom would never personally, but I'm sure some older moms do. But the point I'm trying to make is that almost all of Domino's most frequent and loving customers are in that ideal customer demographic, young men between the ages of 20 to 30. They even pick their new locations based on having high concentrations of young men, which is why they always have a location in college towns. Once they've defined their target demographic, they use this to inform where to put new locations. They also inform their pricing, their marketing taglines, their email marketing, and their website copy, as well as a lot more, which I'll get into later in this video. So anyway, that's the first step, deciding who it is that you want to build your reputation with, because that is what brand is. It's the reputation of your restaurant. And that reputation changes who buys from your restaurant and how much they're willing to pay when they do buy, because you can't be loved by everybody. The top restaurants instead choose one type of person to focus on and build the perfect brand experience for them, even if it makes others like them less. So once we know who our perfect customer is, it's important to get clear on how we want to make them feel when they think of our brand. That's step 2. How do we want people to feel when they think about our restaurant? The right answer to how we want people to feel depends on the needs of our ideal customers. Different types of customers have different needs that we need to meet. Actually, I'm just going to keep using the Domino's example as I give you each of the 3 steps so that you can see the process that created one of the most successful restaurant brands of our time. It's one that we all know. Then, once we get through the 3 steps, I'll share 2 other successful restaurant brands, including a multi-million-dollar single location restaurant, so that you can see how these steps can be applied in a totally different context and different size of restaurant. So we now know that Domino's focuses on young men in the lower middle class. The next question that Domino's had to answer in planning their brand was, how do we want to make these young men feel when they think of Domino's? Well, young men are known to be pretty impatient and last minute, and they tend to be on a pretty low budget. So what did Domino's build their brand around? It's all about convenience, speed, and cost, meeting those customers' needs. So the first emotion that Domino's is trying to make customers feel is actually relief that tasty food is on the way as fast as humanly possible and at a cheap price that isn't going to break the budget. And even some excitement about the ability to get a supreme pizza and lava crunch cake in less than 30 minutes. Excitement and relief are the 2 emotions they're going for in everything they do as a brand. They're not going for quality. They're not going to be known as healthy, which is why the demographics that care about those things, like my mom, 60-year-old women, are so disgusted by the Domino's brand. But their brand feeling doesn't end there. Making their customers customers feel like they're the fastest and the cheapest do meet some of the needs that young men practically have in their lives, but they don't satisfy the most important emotional need for a restaurant brand to hit on. The most successful restaurant brands also need to make customers feel a sense of belonging with their concept. They want their ideal customers to feel at home in their restaurant. And the way Domino's does this is absolutely genius, which we're going to get to in a second. So now that we've already done step one, where we ask ourselves, who is my ideal customer? I want to call something out about this as you're thinking about branding your own restaurant, because I've noticed a pattern. And the pattern is that usually the most successful restaurant owners serve a type of ideal customer that they know extremely well, either because they are that type of person themselves, or they have very close friends and family that are that type of person, so they know how to predict their tastes. I actually looked this up while I was recording this video, and my jaw dropped. I didn't know this about Domino's before, but the founder of Domino's, Tom Monaghan, was actually 23 years old when he started. So is it a coincidence that he chose an ideal customer, men between the ages of 20 and 30, that were just like him? I don't think so. For example, I wouldn't be the right type of person to start a restaurant that serves halal food. It's not that I have anything against halal food, I actually kind of like it, but it's that I wouldn't be able to predict the tastes of the ideal customer for a halal food restaurant, because the ideal customer of a halal food restaurant tends to be older Muslim men. I don't know many older Muslim men, so I wouldn't be able to predict what they would like in my concept. By the way, if doing that research and prediction on your concept sounds overwhelming, and if you instead want me to do it, I'd love to. Just comment your restaurant name, your restaurant type, and the city it's in down below, and I or somebody on my team will research the types of people who live in your city and the restaurant type that you have to provide you detailed info on the perfect ideal customer to build your brand around completely for free. As you can tell, I'm super passionate about helping restaurant owners and doing this type of research, so I'd be happy to. Your comment will also help make this video go more viral, which is what is in it for me. Then step two, once we know our ideal customer, is we ask ourselves, how do we want to make them feel? In the Domino's example, the founder Tom realized that the most important thing to appealing to young men was making them feel relief about how fast they could get the food when they're hungry and how cheap it could be. So he built his reputation, his brand, around speed and cheapness. There's other restaurant brands that are super successful, like Morton's Steakhouse, that appeal to a wealthier and older man. So they actually do the opposite of what Domino's does. They don't say it's going to be the cheapest and the fastest. In fact, they're slow and expensive. They build their reputation around quality, and expensiveness helps reinforce that story. But the thing that the most successful restaurant brands all have in common is that they make their customers feel a sense of belonging when they think about that restaurant in their mind. They want their customers to think, this is for people like me. And they achieve that through the third step, which is telling the story that makes customers feel those target emotions. When I say story, I don't mean a story like,
once upon a time, a young girl named Little Red Riding Hood went to live with her grandmother in the woods.
That's the type of story that we think about inherently when we think of story, a fairy tale. But in branding, the stories are all of the details that the company uses to make their ideal customer feel their ideal emotions when they think about that brand. So once we've identified who our customer is and what we want them to feel, we can get creative in coming up with messaging and details and storytelling that makes them feel those things. That's where branding really comes in. It starts with the stories we tell around our brand, like our founding story and our company's mission, and then it gets reinforced with all of the little decisions that we make in execution of that brand. Here's what I mean. In Domino's case, their founding story is that their founder Tom bought the original Domino's for $1,000 while he was in college. Then through being entrepreneurial, he grew it and grew it and grew it over the years. It's the perfect story for their ideal customer, other young men, because many young men at that age are also trying to make something of their lives through entrepreneurship and hard work, so it resonates. That's the story Domino's used to make other young men feel like they belong at Domino's. It's a story of being a brand for us and by us. But it's not just the founding story that Domino's uses. They also use stories to be known for their speed and their great value. For example, for the first few decades of growing their brand, they told a story in all of their marketing about their 30-minute guarantee. It's so famous that you still hear people talking about it now, over 20 years after they've stopped talking about it as a brand. It's just stuck with them because in that story, they used their marketing to tell customers that if they didn't get their delivery in 30 minutes, it was free. What better way to make them feel like they're the perfect brand to add relief to that hunger? That was a story that grabbed attention and made customers think of them as the fastest, which was exactly what they wanted to do. Then the other major story they told in their marketing was a story about how great their deals are. They have this famous commercial with Donald Trump where they had a Domino's driver deliver a pizza to his golden penthouse before he was the president. And the driver tells Trump about his 5-5-5 deal, which is something like $5 for 5 pizzas and 5 toppings, something crazy like that. Then Trump pauses, he looks at the driver and he's like, I've got a counter offer for you in his Trump way. And he counter offers the exact same deal that the driver just told told him in this commercial, which was a joke implying that the deal couldn't be beat, not even by Trump. This commercial went viral for them. This was another genius form of marketing because it told a story that reinforces one of the key things that Domino's wants to be known for in their great value and their deals. And it used a celebrity in Donald Trump, who was especially loved by young men at this point, pre-presidency, to tell that story and grab attention. By the way, storytelling doesn't just have to be commercials. Storytelling in restaurant branding is also the details of the restaurant execution, like what language is used in the menu. For example, if we were to look at some of Domino's top sellers on their menu, they include the cheeseburger pizza and the extravaganza feast pizza. Their most popular dessert is called the chocolate lava crunch cake. Are these names that would appeal to people like my 60-year-old mom? Hell no, absolutely not. I can already hear her on the phone being like, yuck, yuck, yuck. But they're the perfect names to reinforce the story that this brand is for young men. The other major strategic decision that Domino's has made is to go all in on technology because they know that who is it that finds technology to be cool? It's young men. That's why they started to call themselves a technology company that happens to sell pizzas. It's to appeal to young men in their ideal customer profile and make them feel aligned with the way that they see the world and the things that they find to be cool. Each of these details complement the bigger reputation that Domino's wants to have, and it makes it super appealing to their ideal customer for that reason. The other details that they reinforce with this story are in Domino's visual identity itself. Let's look at Domino's name and logo so that you can see what I mean by this. Their logo color is mainly blue, and it's a very masculine blue. And the secondary color is this bright race car red, which is also masculine. But it doesn't just end with using masculine colors. What icon did they use for their logo? A domino. They even called their business Domino's strategically. Because fun fact, Domino's wasn't initially called Domino's. It was called Dominic's, which was the name of the original concept that the old owner of the pizzeria that got converted into Domino's called it. It was a family-focused pizzeria. But shortly after buying that first location of Dominic's, Tom, the then founder of Domino's, decided to rename it to Domino's because he knew that he needed something that appealed more to his ideal customer, which he envisioned as being young men rather than families. And during this period of the early 1960s that Tom was creating the Domino's concept, Domino's was one of the most popular gambling games for young men and a very popular toy for young boys to play with. So he decided that this was the perfect name for appealing to them. He wanted his customers to associate fun and playing games with friends with his pizza brand. So what the founder Tom did after deciding who they wanted to serve is he created the perfect set of symbols that appealed to those young men. It made them feel like they were at home in this restaurant. It made them think, this looks like it's for me. All of these symbols make these young men feel at home. That's one of the reasons why the brand has become such a smash hit among young men. Young men in college and right after college love Domino's. Anyway, now that we've got the 3-step process down with the Domino's example, it could be useful to cover a few other examples of single location restaurants that have made millions perfecting their branding to prove to you that this also works with independent restaurants. We can learn different lessons from each of them to apply to our own restaurant businesses. But before we get to those examples, if you've enjoyed this video so far and you want to continue learning about restaurant marketing, then click that subscribe button down below. Subscribing is completely free and it makes sure that you get email notifications when I post new videos on restaurant marketing, restaurant growth, or restaurant success stories so that you never miss out on the latest of what's working today to grow a restaurant business based on my experience in helping thousands of restaurant businesses grow. So anyway, if you want more inspiration for your restaurant brand, here are some other examples of super successful restaurant owners and how they created brands that attracted millions, or in one case, billions in sales. We'll start with the example that is as opposite from what Tom did with the Domino's brand as possible, and yet it's still wildly successful as a single location Italian restaurant. That example is Antoinette Belvedere and what she did with her restaurant concept, Ottavio's Italian Restaurant in Lakeside, California. Antoinette knows her customer very well. She aces step 1 because Lakeside is mostly a retirement community. That means her ideal customer is between the ages of 65 and 80. They tend to be upper middle class and they're typically split between elderly men and elderly women. So that first part of knowing her ideal customer is easy. Then step 2, after identifying her ideal customer, is how she wants to make them feel when they think about her brand Ottavio's. Upper middle class retirees in that elderly age group tend to care about 2 things more than anything: family and community. So in thinking about that, what they care about most and how she wanted to make them feel. She wanted to make them feel connected to their community every time they order, like they were supporting people with similar values, and like those people valued family too. That's why in step 3, telling her brand story and nailing every detail to reinforce that story, Antoinette designed her concept to create those emotions in her customers. Everything about her restaurant experience lovingly says that this is a story of family and community, that this is a brand for people that care about those things. The logo itself is a picture of her grandfather, the founder of the restaurant. She uses it to tell guests the founding story of her restaurant, which is a story of her family. It's the story of how her grandfather immigrated from Italy and brought his family's recipes to his new home in Lakeside, California, and how their family tradition is loving to serve the people of their community in Lakeside, of how it's family owned and operated, of how they've done so many different things to support the community over the years. It's this branding that makes Ottavio have such a cult following and do millions in sales, even out of a small location. It perfectly fits the needs of the customer, especially their emotional needs, and creates a reputation which makes people around it feel like it's for people like them. Then every detail of her restaurant execution strengthens that story. Her dining room, if you step into it, looks like a family's dining room table. It's got family art on the walls. It has a very cozy, loving feel. She chooses red and gold and white as the colors for her brand, which are also often the colors of families and family occasion and family legacies and heirlooms. She also chose menu items which again people associate with family, like baked rigatoni and lasagna, and describe them in her menu as her family's recipes from Italy. It was creating this feeling that allows her to charge prices that are way on the higher end. She, on her menu, has a 12-inch pizza just like Domino's has, and yet she can charge double for that pizza versus what Domino's can charge. Her customers happily pay it. They pay more than double, actually, even though there's a Domino's right down the street who can do it faster and cheaper than she can. Why? Because all of these brand details make customers feel like Ottavio's is higher quality. That's the story that they can tell themselves, and that it's for people like them. It gives them a sense of belonging. It makes them feel like the brand is aligned with their values and identity, and therefore higher quality. If this exact same concept and high quality execution were in a college town with mostly middle class or lower middle class young men, would it be as successful and able to charge such high prices? Absolutely not, because there would be a mismatch. So it's important to pick the location carefully of your restaurant concept and ensure that there's enough of your ideal customers in that location of the restaurant so that it can be successful. Anyway, I've got one more great example for you that really brings this point home, because this is one of the most successful restaurants founded over the last 20 years. The brand is called Cava, and their CEO, Brett Schulman, is a branding genius. They just went public a few months ago with a $6 billion valuation, just 15 years after being founded, and are one of the most efficient restaurant groups of all time. They're a Mediterranean concept that specializes in healthy bowls and hummus. So on the surface, you might think, well, anybody should be able to like healthy bowls with hummus or rice, but we now know better than that. That's not the approach that Cava takes, because choosing your ideal customer is a huge advantage. They know exactly who their ideal customer is. They answer that question, who is my ideal customer, very specifically. For them, it's women between the ages of 30 and 40 that are upper middle class. Women in those ages tend to care most about health and taking care of people. So the brand story that they've told is that they are all about health. They're all about taking care of their community. So in step 2, how do we want to make them feel? They first want to make them feel like they belong at Cava. They want those upper middle class 30 and 40-year-old women to feel comforted and validated, like this brand aligns with their values and with the type of person that they are. So that's why in step 3, to storytell on their website, they start their story with their mission, which is helping people eat well and live well. Then on the next line, they say that Cava is all about taking care of people and the things that feed us, that they take care of the earth, the farmers, and their team members through their concept. To an upper middle class woman in her 30s or 40s, this is exactly the perfect message, and it resonates because they tend to care most about those things. If we were to show this messaging to the ideal Domino's customer, a 20-year-old frat bro, telling him how it's all about taking care of the earth and the health, it probably wouldn't be a fit. But to their ideal customer, that story of a brand that is about eating well and taking care of people is perfect. But it doesn't end with that brand story. That's where it begins. So then the details of how they execute that concept shine through to rhyme with that story and reinforce it. If we look at their website and their restaurant, we can see that every graphic is perfectly designed to say to those higher earning women, this is for you. I was just scrolling through their homepage researching this video, and I noticed that every major food picture on their homepage has a pretty hand of a woman in the bowls eating it. Like the food is photographed with a pretty hand of a female with her fancy nails perfectly done. They all have perfect manicures. Most men probably wouldn't notice this, but I bet that women subconsciously notice it, if not consciously. gorgeously. Their hands in the pictures look like they just had a $70 high-end manicure, which makes those upper middle class women who spend a lot of time and money on their appearance and looking polished feel like they belong at this concept that specializes in healthy bowls. It says to them subtly, this restaurant is for people like us. We belong here. When Kava IPO'd this year, they also had to make a lot of their numbers and business details public. And it turns out that their internal numbers and planning reflect this brand plan. They choose new locations in cities that have especially high populations of those upper middle class women. Cities that they know that their brand will have strong fit in. And it's really worked. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you've enjoyed it and want to continue learning about what it takes to build and grow a restaurant brand successfully, then smash that subscribe button down below, because every month I post a few new videos like this one, which break down the secrets behind the most successful restaurants to help restaurant owners find similar success in their journeys. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, take care, and hopefully I'll see you around here soon.